Okay, I want to switch gears real quick and just kind of play with this little rabbit hole and see if we get anything out of it. You know
Yeah.
who Jeffrey Miller is?
Well, I've heard of him. I don't know
He's
like
a he's an
specific.
evolutionary psychologist and he's on the spectrum himself, like he talks about that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because he says that wokeness is actually very hostile to autistic people because autistic people tend to be very literal and wokeness is like a giant game of pretend, essentially. And I'm wondering how you
Yeah.
see it from that angle.
Well, you'll love this. Well, essentially, what's interesting is that autistic people, people who are actually on the spectrum and have like a diagnosable, like it's very evident and apparent that they're autistic when you talk to them or get to know them and everything like that. They are actually to Dr. Miller's point. They are very big targets of the social justice activist mob. And the biggest, I actually didn't know this until I was doing some research. And Greta Thunberg actually has talked about this before. And she is another a quote unquote autistic person that is now dictating the world's climate policy,
Yeah,
apparently.
yeah.
She has now kind of attached herself and glommed onto this as well. And she says that she deliberately, when she recruits like these wild activist people that go and like throw soup on paintings or whatever these crazy people do, she targets autistic people because she looks for certain characteristics and traits in autistic people in terms of like, well, they're really like, dedicated to things and they stick on to topics easier or whatever the case might be. And again, that's predatory and wrong. And, if you actually are an autistic person, you probably are looking for some type of tribe to belong to because you've been ostracized by your school or you've been picked on or you've been bullied or whatever. And then there comes the clutches of like the crazy climate lady from Sweden. And she's like, hey, you can throw soup at a painting too. And we'll all be straight and narrow on the other side here. So yes, that's very accurate.
Man, this makes me very angry. But just to flesh
Yeah.
this out more, I was reading, I forget who it was, talking about how so many, particularly younger autistic females, have so much trouble fitting in and
Hmm.
just like finding your social clique is so difficult to navigate. I mean, it's difficult for a normal 13-year-old, much less if you're autistic. That's like a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And then you dip a toe. If this, was talking about, you dip a toe into the non-binary space or the trans space and you get love bombed and you think, thank God, finally I have some group
Yeah.
that's accepting me. And before you know it, you're pumped full of hormones and you chop your breasts off. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it seems like it's like that with the social justice movement broadly. These people, and not just autistic, but specifically there in this case, they're having trouble fitting in. And you find this group of people who are like willing to accept you and love bomb you
Yeah.
and ultimately make you do crazy things.